In this book, nothing good happens. There are no positive descriptions of anything, and the events of the story bring the characters nothing except despair and ruin. Hello, today I'm going to be talking about the book Outer Dark by Cormac Mccarthy. I'm going to tell you why this book caught my attention, and then go over a quick summary, which is going to be helpful if you haven't read the book, and then I'm going to do some analysis, which you might care about more if you have read the book. So initially I bought this book for my dad, who's a big Cormac McCarthy fan, but I didn't realize he already had a copy, so he just gave me it. It was like, here, a present for you. And I decided to read it, despite my dad's warning that it was interesting. I've now read 4 books by Cormac McCarthy, and unfortunately this was my least favorite. Even though I didn't love this book, I found some parts of it really compelling, and so I thought it was worth talking about here on the channel. So, here's what happens in the story. This book starts by introducing the two main characters, Colahome and his sister Renthi, who recently had a child. Now, who's the father of the child? It's Kola. For reasons that aren't explained, but you can probably guess at, he puts the baby out in the woods to die, only for it to be taken away by a traveling merchant that Kola briefly encounters. Upon discovering this fact, Renthi goes on a quest to go retrieve her child, and Kola goes on his own journey to find her. They travel through this bleak, hellish world, and they encounter a variety of down-on-their-luck characters. Somewhere along the way, Kola picks up a set of followers, and these are not good followers. These are 3 vengeful men who leave a trail of destruction and murder in their wake. The exploits of the characters in this book aren't really linked to each other. Kola is constantly trying to find work to feed himself, and trespassing and stealing along the way, and Renthi is asking everyone that she meets about this traveling merchant so that she can get her baby back. They exist in a state of squalor. They have nothing in the way of possessions or skills or even opinions, and they seem to be going on this quest simply because home has nothing for them. At the end of the book, Renthi ends up finding the merchant, who we see give up possession of the baby long ago at the beginning of the book. But the merchant didn't realize that it was an incest baby, and once he finds this out, he tells Renthi to stay away from him. Kola also ends up finding the merchant, but he gets to him after the 3 guys who have been following him do. The only problem is that they've killed the merchant, but also confusingly, they've acquired his child, who they then kill right in front of Kola. Renthi stumbles across this scene probably days later with the hanged merchant and the burned body of her child. The story ends with Kola talking to a blind man years later who he fails to warn is walking into a swamp. And as the blind man walks away, he thinks to himself, someone should tell a blind man before setting him out on his way. And that's kind of the moral of the story. And that's the whole story, I guess. So let's do some analysis. There are some authors that tell. They get really deep into the emotional states of their characters, they tell you what they're thinking, and you don't have to guess why they do what they do. McCarthy is not that type of author. The inner states of these characters are literally never discussed once in the book. They just take actions, and you gotta guess why they do the things they do. I'm not sure I love this choice in this context, although it does work well for his other books. Only facts are presented in Outer Dark, and combined with the bleak symbolism and the dreamlike atmosphere of the novel, it makes the story seem kind of biblical in a way. But don't get me wrong, this is not a story about God. There is a little bit of religion discussed in this book, but it's not McCarthy speculating about any religious ideals or motives. It's the characters talking about it in their own backwards, idiotic way. Everyone in this book is poorly educated, poorly read. There's not even really a mention of where they are. They're just kind of moving from place to place, doing the things that they do, which are often heinous crimes. And at best, they're just trying to get by. I saw something online that said this novel was fundamentally about the consequences of sin, and bro, I've been thinking about that premise. The story hinges around an incest child, which if you take that from a religious perspective is sin made flesh, but it's really the only commendable actions in this book that center around that child, and they're what Kola and Renthi do to recover it after its birth. Their motivations, like everything else in the book, not discussed, but I have a glimmer of hope that Renthi goes after the child because she actually cares about it, and Kola goes after her because he cares about her. While ultimately the cold universe of Outer Dark does punish them in a variety of ways, I don't get the sense it's because of some divine sense of justice, which is what I think of when I hear the consequences of sin. I think it's just because of the poverty and the evil of the world around them. With all that being said, I do find the world that they exist in really compelling from a storytelling perspective, mostly because of how horrible it is. Death and hunger and evil are the only constants in this world, and McCarthy shows a really admirable commitment to keeping that the case. He doesn't divert into like some sunshine and flowers bullshit at any point in this book. It's all doom and gloom, which I can respect as an artistic choice. The characters are illiterate and ignorant and they're evil. No one's the good guy. I wish there was more reflection about this fact, though. Like, I wish you could see an internal monologue of the characters going, oh, this is terrible, like reflecting on it, but you don't really get that either. That's just not the style the book is written in. And so would I read this again? I'm sorry, but definitely not. It's probably the weakest Cormac McCarthy book I've read so far, but I enjoyed some of his more popular work, and so I would recommend him as an author. So yeah, that was the book. It was like a short, weird read. Cormac McCarthy kind of specializes in dudes wandering books, and this is his most dudes wandering out of all the books he's written. So that's all I got. I'm gonna quit yapping, but let me know what I should read next. I got some interesting things coming up, a little more nonfiction, a little more philosophy, so I'm gonna end it right here. Fuck it.